Man, what a welcome, man. That is incredible. Well, hey, really quick, if I can get a favor from the back, I did this really wonderful thing this morning where I dumped coffee all the way down my notes binder. And you all have already heard it back there. Have already heard it. So if you guys want to send my note or my notes from back there up here, that'll help me to like not have to like peel every page apart. So with that being said, there we go. All right, so anyway, so today we're jumping into the series called Real, where we're talking all about real friendships, and I want to ask you guys, I want some feedback from y'all. How would you describe what a real friend? All right. What is a real friend? I want you guys to throw some stuff out to me. Yeah. Yeah, somebody who doesn't try to get you into trouble. Like, yeah, somebody who's not trying to drag you into something. All right, what else? What are some other things that identify a real friend? Yeah. Yeah, somebody that's not doesn't make fun of you, doesn't tear you down, doesn't rip you apart. Somebody that builds you up instead. Yeah. Tell you if you have something in your teeth. Or even if you have something hanging from your nose, you got a little cliffhanger action going on there, whatever it might be. Somebody that's like looking out for you. That that is like how you can tell if you're comfortable with somebody is if you can tell them like, dude, you got something in your teeth. Because I guarantee you all have people in your life that you're like, oh, I'm not going to tell them. I guess they're on their own today, and that's how you know you're not that close. All right. What are some other ways you can identify a real friend? Yeah, they'll work through conflict with you. They'll work through conflict. They will have those challenge, like they'll be willing to work through that conflict with you. Riley, have you ever had like conflicting conversations with a friend? And after you guys have worked out together, what does that do for your friendship? Way closer. It's weird to think about, but you can have conflict with a friend and become closer as a result of the way you handle it. As a result of the way you have that conversation. You're like, dude, I love you, but this is how that affected me. Or, dude, I love you and I'm sorry I hurt you. There's two sides to that conversation. And so being willing to do that. So those are really important things. Give me any more ways to identify a real friend. Yeah, Sean. Yeah, they're there for you when you need them. They're there for you when you need them. And then the last one I want to, oh, yeah, go ahead. People who stand up for you. They're willing to stand up for you. But also something I heard the last two services, and I absolutely love this one, and it kind of ties into that, is also somebody who's willing to stand up to you. Somebody who's willing to stand up to you. Somebody who's willing to call you out on your stuff. Somebody who's willing to say, like, tell you a hard truth and be like, hey, that wasn't cool. Like that was like that thing that you said or did, like that's not a good look for you. Somebody who's willing to tell you something that you don't want to hear. I tell if you're in sixth grade and you're brand new here, this is something I tell our students all the time. You'll hear this from me more than just today. The friends that you need to trust, or some of the friends that you need to trust the most, are the ones that are willing to tell you something that you don't want to hear. The ones that are willing to say, "Hey, I know you don't like this, but the way you were making fun of that kid on the bus, like not cool. The way you were doing this at school, the way that you were talking about that person behind their back, no, that's not what I want for you. I want better for you. Somebody who's willing to tell you something that you don't want to hear. Somebody that tells you like, hey, I know you're like asking me about advice on that situation, but I just want you to know your parents were right. You know what I mean? Like when a friend tells you those hard truths that you don't want to hear, that's how you know you can trust them. That's how you know that they have your best interest in mind because they're willing to say something you don't want to hear, and they love you enough to be uncomfortable for you. See, the thing is, there's lots of different things that identify real friends, but there's also lots of things that identify people that maybe aren't real friends. People who talk about you behind your back, people who tear you down, people who aren't there for you when you need them, people who don't hold you accountable, who don't tell you those hard truths, whatever it might be. And so something you'll hear Pastor JD and I say a lot is, and this is so true when it comes to our friendships, is show me your friends, and I will show you your future. All right, if you have your notebooks with you, I know 6 years you guys should all have notebooks now. Write that down in your notes. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. The reason why is we can all think of people that we linked arms with in our life, people that we considered friends, that maybe us being friends with them either made us better or made us worse. Right? Anybody who has friends here that have made you better? They've made you a better person. They maybe brought you closer to Jesus. They bring out your best. How many of you guys have some friends that have brought out your worst? Yeah, we all have probably both of those friends. right? We have those people in our lives that have brought out our best and brought out our worst. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this series is how do we identify which types of friends these friends are, and how do we make sure that we're allowing the right friends to influence and move us, and not allow the wrong friends to move us and shape us in the wrong direction. And so I want to jump in, because think about this. Think about how some of our friendships form. Maybe you became friends with this person because, well, they're really cool, and you're trying to fit in with everybody else. You're like, well, I gotta kind of fit in with this person so I can fit in with this crowd. So we're friends by default because I want to be in their group. Maybe you became friends because they're funny. Maybe you became friends because you have a lot in common. Maybe you just became friends because it's convenient. I know for me, I grew up in the boonies, like out in the sticks, and so in my area of the country, we had like I don't know, like 5 or 7 houses around us. Three of them had kids, like around my age. So my friends were my neighbors in my very limited neighborhood. All right, and so and these friends were my friends by default, if you will. They were my friends because, well, we lived next to each other. So who else am I going to hang out with? And so we were friends, and my friends didn't always make good decisions. I didn't always make good decisions, and we often negatively influenced each other. We constantly brought out each other's worst. The thing is some of your friends in your life, maybe, the reason why you're friends is just because they're available. Just because they're available to hang out, but maybe they're still selfish. Maybe they still treat you like dirt. Maybe they distract you from what really matters in life. Maybe they pressure you to be something you're not, or they influence you to do things that you said you'd never do. Or maybe you just say, man, they're just not really a real friend. And so how do we handle that when we have people in our lives that we call friends, we interact with them like they're friends, but they're not real friends? We're not real friends. Jumping into Psalm chapter 1, I think there's like 149 chapters in the book of Psalms, and God chose for the very, very first Psalm to kick off the largest book of the Bible of all this poetry and songs and stuff like that. God kicked off this giant book wanting to focus on this idea of friendships and the core that we surround ourselves with. And this is what God said in Psalm chapter 1. He says, "Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked." You got anybody ever here like followed somebody's bad advice and it like blew up in your face? Well, not very many of you, just me and like 5 others. All right, the rest of you are great. You can ignore that one apparently. All right, or stand around with sinners. The joy for those who don't follow the advice of the wicked, stand around with sinners, or join in with mockers. One of the things I mentioned, like kind of like half-heartedly about like getting into trouble, like on the bus and stuff like that. The reason why was because growing up, I always sat on the back of the bus. And me and my friends would sit back there, and we were so mean to every single person that sat in any rows ahead of us. So we would shout things at them. We would say stuff about them. We would talk loudly about them. Like, oh, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about somebody else that's wearing your same shirt. And we would do all these stupid things. And I was so mean and ruthless to so many people. I caused so much hurt and damage in other people's lives. And the reason why was because I was trying to fit in. Because I was trying to fit in with a crowd of other people who were mocking other people. Even though buses weren't invented when Psalm 1 was written, I'm sure God was writing it very specifically for me when he's saying, don't join in with the mockers. Because that's exactly what I was doing, and I was ripping so many people apart. I was causing so much hurt and damage in other people's lives because I was allowing myself to be influenced by other people. But it says, but the wise people, this is what they do. It says, instead, they delight in the law of the Lord. What are they going to follow? Are they going to follow the crowd of negative influences, or are they going to follow God and his word and say, hey, how do you want to shape my life? It says that's what the wise does. They do it by digging into, by meditating, by digging into God's word day and night. All right, meaning I'm choosing to pursue God and allow him to shape and guide me. It says those people are like trees planted along the riverbank. What's nice about a tree that's along the riverbank is it's constantly getting fresh water, even in the midst of a drought. And it says that, and then by doing that, they bear fruit in each season, and their leaves never wither. And it says, and they prosper in all that they do. Truth of the matter is, we all want to have a prosperous life. We all want to have a good life. And this isn't a prosperity gospel thing. What this is God saying, what I said earlier, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. You want to go in a good direction. You want to think about like the amazing things that God has for you, like down the road, and like having a great life, having a great family, having a job that you love and all that stuff. He said, you want to do that. Don't get distracted by the wicked, the sinners, the mockers. Don't get distracted by them. Doesn't mean your friends have to be perfect, all right? But what it means is your friends that are pursuing God, your friends that are like farther ahead in the relationship with God, allowing them to influence you and lead you and guide you. Your friends in your life that are like, I'm not so into that whole God thing. Saying, you know what? You're not going to be the influencer in my life. If there's any influencer in this relationship, in this friendship, it's going to be me who's pursuing Christ. And what we have to do is we have to learn to recognize who are we going to allow to influence us, to guide us and shape us. And who are we going to maybe set up some boundaries for and say, but you know what, you're not really making wise decisions, so you're not going to be the person that's going to shape and guide me. And that's what we have to do with our friendships. And that's what God's calling us to do. See, the thing is real friends choose each other wisely. And my challenge for each and every one of you guys this year, because I remember one of the things I loved about brand new school years was it's like a fresh start. Does anybody here get excited for the fresh start of a new school year? Not the school year itself, but the fact that it's a fresh start. The fact that you automatically have all A's, right? Like you're starting off strong. It's a new year, all right? All the D's are in the dust, all right? And all that stuff. You know, whatever it might be, there's new fresh start. But what I loved about a new school year is rolling into it. Maybe you probably all have done the same thing that I did, as you roll into it thinking, man, who did I miss this last summer? Who was I like, man, that person always made my life so much better, so much stronger. I really missed them this last summer. And who are those people in your life that you're like, man, it was such a nice break not having them guiding me, not having them shaping me, not having them influencing my life. And you roll into the new school, you're thinking, who do I really want to hang out with this year? Who do I really want to be friends with? And that's an important question that you ask. And that's why we're kicking off this season with this questions, because we want you to ask those questions rolling into this new school year. For me, as I mentioned earlier, my best friend Tony growing up, we were best friends from age 3 to 16. We were friends for 13 years. All right. The big thing that changed is when I gave my life to Christ when I was 16, Tony was not on board with me having this life change. He was constantly trying to draw me back into my old life. And I was like, dude, this isn't cool. Like, I'm not turning back. Like, I'm all in for Christ. And after he kept trying to influence me and drag me back over and over again, eventually I just had to be like, dude, sorry. And that was hard because I lost a lot of quote unquote friendships during that season because of that, because I had to take a stand. And it was hard. There for about 3 months, it was just me and Jesus. All right, and I grew a lot during those 3 months. But because I was willing to take that pivot, because I was willing to take that hard stand, God grew me like none other. And I wasn't abandoning my friends. I wasn't walking out on them. What I was doing is I was setting up boundaries and saying, I'm no longer letting you drag me back anymore. And that's what God's calling us to do. How many of you guys know what a rip current is? Does anybody know what a rip current is? All right, so a good number of you guys. Oh, wow. So I know all of our scuba divers in here. Where's Kylie Clean? Yeah, yeah. So I know they all know. So what a rip current is, it's when the water hits the shore in such a way, so you have millions of gallons of water pressing up against the shore, and then sometimes it will channel, and most of that, or a lot of that water is going to go out in a single area. So it creates a current that is pushing away from the shore. And if you ever get caught up in it, what it does is that water is pushing so hard, and it's pushing you back out to sea. And it's hard, if you can swim as hard as you want, but it's not, rarely does it help. Many people die because they get caught up in a rip current, and they don't know how to fix it. They don't know how to respond, and they don't know how to get out, so they just get swept out to sea. And so when you get caught up in a rip current, you have 3 options. All right, you can swim as hard as you want and hope that your arms and legs are more powerful than 12 million gallons of water. All right, you can swim as hard as you want and try to fight it. All right, you can just be like, throw your hands up in the air and be like, well, I'm just going to go along for the ride. This sucks. I guess this is it. And just hope that maybe somebody comes and rescues you out there. But as you can see in this picture, the real way to get out of a rip current is to change direction. To change direction, to say, I'm getting swept out, I'm getting pushed and pulled in the direction I no longer want to go. And it might have felt fun at first, like, oh, this is crazy, I can't control this. And all of a sudden, you're too far back, and you're like, uh-oh, this got out of hand way too quick. And maybe that's where you feel in some of your friendships right now. Like they're dragging you back. They're dragging you, it's like, you know what, now it's going someplace I don't want to go. And what God calls us to do when it does that is change direction. What you do to get a rip current is you start swimming sideways across that, because as you swim sideways, eventually you hit a section of water that what's it doing? It's going in the right direction. Where this water was drifting you out to sea, You change direction, you swim sideways enough, and what happens, it starts to press you in back into the shore, back to where it's safe, back to where you need to be, back to where you can prosper, back to where your life can be healthy and protected. And that's what we have to realize for our friendships, is when you feel like you're caught up and it's dragging you out to a place where you're like, this is not where I intended to be. That when all we have to do is change direction, and then as we do, God will shape us and move us. Years after I had to put up those boundaries in those old friendships, my best friend Tony calls me out of nowhere and says, hey, I'm getting married and I want to know if you will do my wedding. Because he saw that my life headed in a different direction, and he wanted me to come in and be an influence in his life once again. 10 years before that, he didn't want me to be an influence in his life. 10 years later, he's like, hey, I'm ready to mature. I'm ready to grow up. I'm ready to make a difference. Will you come back in and be an influence in my life? Sometimes you have to allow yourself to get healthy so you can get back to the shore, catch your breath, and the way you can throw out life rafts to other people to help them too. So I want you to ask yourself 3 questions when it's going to your friendships this year. Is how are my friendships influencing me? How are my friendships influencing me? All right, how am I influencing my friends? And how can I be more wise with my friends? All right, who's influencing me? Who do I need to influence? And how can I be more wise in my friendships? What that means is I always tell people you need to have 4 people in your life. 2 people that are so far ahead of you in the faith, in their walk with Christ, that they are bringing you along, that they're helping you grow. They're bringing out your best. All right, they're reaching down their hand and they're helping you up. But meanwhile, you need to be that for 2 more people. Well, there's 2 people who aren't where you're at, and you're reaching down and you're helping them get to where you are. You're helping them up onto that next ledge, up onto that next level. You need those 4 people in your life, and your small groups, your small group leaders and the friends at your table is around you. My hope and prayer is that God uses these friendships around your circle right now, throughout the course of this next year, and for those who are in 6th grade, your next 7 years here at the warehouse, that God will use those friendships to guide and shape you in ways like you can't even imagine. And that is my hope and prayer, is that the Lord will radically transform your lives because of that. Because as you do, we realize that real friends choose each other wisely. And we have on purpose put you guys in small groups with these people in your circle, because we know that through those circles, God is going to grow you like none other. With that being said, I want to throw it to you guys to have some discussion at your tables. Leaders, go ahead and just jump to wherever you think are the most important questions for you to talk about on your small group guides, and let's dive into some discussion for a little bit.